How are we? I hope you've had a beautiful start to today. Coming in early on most of you's Monday morning and getting this podcast episode started the right way. So if you are coming into this one, guys, as always, it's really nice to know who is watching along. Cue the soundboard, the comments for Terry Dorian. Hey, Jace. Sorry, not Terry Dorian. Terry Holden. There it is. What a legend, mate. I've got another mate named Terry Dorian. It's not you, Tez. How are you, boys? Good to see you in here. First slot in. Nico, my main man. How are you, brother? No doubt super tired after the weekend. What a cracking weekend. Guys, Nico, our boy below, competed in his first lifting comp. And my God, it was so cool watching my boy lift a shitload of weight on live on YouTube from the lifting station at the place where he was actually competing. It was so sick. A lot of the boys were watching the broadcast and it was unreal. So congratulations, Nico. I'm super proud of you, man. What's going on, guys? Who else is coming into this one? Team captains, it'd be sick if you could tag your team in the comments as Tez has done. Bring them in. Let's see some guys and girls getting amongst here. Hello, Michelle. Is the holiday over, Michelle, or what? What's the scoop? Are you back on less islandy ground, or are we still mid-holiday? Lucky you either way. What a beautiful place to be able to go. Mikey Bergman, how are you, my sexy man? Good to see you in here, Mikey boy. I love having you coming into the podcast, Mikey. Bobby Gordon, how are you, pal? Good to see you in here, brother. Happy Monday to you. Warren Todd, what's happening, mate? You're becoming very consistent, It's really nice. Look at this. Michelle's still in Fiji, rubbing it in. How good. Hey, Mikey, all the way in Canada. So Mike Bergman lives in a couple of thousand... probably 100 kilometers from where I am, actually. And he's in cold Canada. So, dude, I'm feeling you, man. But I'll tell you what, we're coming to the end of it. Guys, we're going to get this episode started in 30 seconds. We've got Chris Lewis in here. How are you, Chriso? As consistent as everyone. Jai Simon, I'm listening during my workouts. Boom! Well, in that case, Jai, you've given me the motivation that I needed, the stimulation I needed to really take this energy up a little bit, brother. So I'm going to bring in our Instagram audience. So trying out some streaming on Instagram as well, which is fun. So guys, I'm ready to rock and roll and get this cracking. So let's get started, guys. On the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast. This is the podcast that you come to when you are sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. Now, in today's episode, we are going to be talking about something I believe is potentially a form of procrastination. Okay, but we're going to go deep on this episode on this topic. So if you are coming in via Instagram, thanks for coming in, guys. It's nice seeing you in here. And we're live streaming across about 8 different platforms here as well, which is really quite cool. Guys, firstly, I want to say welcome to our Mother's Day winners. We had 4 new ladies come into the Academy last night off the back of winning a free 6-week transformation, which was so good. So we've got across the globe, we've got Nurkan, Vicky, Nadina, and Lauren all joining our crew. We start today and we lock in, and it's going to be awesome. To all the mothers out there, I hope you had a beautiful Mother's Day. All our love to you. Let's get to today's podcast episode. I want to talk about something that I personally have suffered from a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean many years of suffering from this. Back in my Sydney apartment, I own an apartment in, I guess you'd call it the inner west or the western east in Alexandria, Rosebery. I rent the apartment out, and inside that apartment, there is a lot of books. I didn't want to have to pay to store them, so I left them in the apartment. It was a furnished apartment. There's a hell of a lot of books. There's books there ranging from nutrition books to textbooks. There are encyclopedias. There are bodybuilding texts. There are motivational books. There are psychology books. There are all these kind of books, and I'm talking maybe 500 or 600 books. You can probably see here behind me as well, books. Around the corner, books. I love books. And the reason I love books is because I believe that success leaves cues. I'm going to say that again. Success leaves clues. Okay? Success leaves clues. I like to think of it like this. If I see someone successful, I almost think of it as they are running so quickly, but in the back, as everyone tries to pull them back and stabs them in the back, on their back, those little knives that are stabbing those people, trying to pull them down, I like to think of them as little pieces of wisdom. That's the way I view it. If you can read about the achievements and processes of successful business people, sports people, and people that maybe have achieved success despite the odds, there's got to be a ton of value in that, right? Who here is like an avid book reader? Like, let me know in the comments if that's something that you are all over. I've always been really addicted to learning, probably because I connected the dots back at school, that if you put the time into learning something, you saw the results straight away. In fact, that's probably why I did decently at school. I went to a intelligent high school. I got a grade score, HSC score of 93.4. And that's pretty much because I memorized shit. Like, that's what I did. I memorized shit. My process was I would record myself saying the syllabus of whatever it was that I needed to learn. So let's just say it was like PDHPE or whatever it was called. So the health subject. I'd record the syllabus as it was laid out, and I'd record it on a DVD or cassette or whatever we call it. And then when I was driving to school, the 20 minutes that I was driving to school, I replayed that boring syllabus over and over and over and over and over and over again until I'd heard it so many times that I knew the syllabus. And what that meant is that when I sat in the test, I was able to, when asked a question in the exam, I was able to recall whatever it was in the syllabus and then expand upon the points because I knew the points of the syllabus. Does that make sense? So this was the strength of having a good memory. But applying knowledge in an exam is very, 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 very different to applying knowledge in life. Okay? Applying knowledge in life. Fast forward nearly 15 years, around 5 years ago, I'm 35 years old, and I asked myself, why do I know so much? I have read so many books, but still, I haven't created a thriving business, and I'm not making the money that I want. In fact, my finances have just stayed flat for years, probably a decade. So I'm going to ask that question again. Why do I know all the things? Because I've read all the books. So I've got the knowledge, but nothing is changing in my life. In the depths of my probably 6 years of trying to figure out how to actually become a coach, reading every book I can, it dawned on me that what was actually happening was that me reading is a form of procrastination. Me reading is a form of procrastination. See, the thing about reading, and this also stands for listening to podcasts like this, YouTube tutorials, or taking multiple courses to get more qualified, Travis Sanderland, it's actually a form of procrastination. Think about it. Unless you actually take action at a certain point, if you just accumulate all this knowledge that you're one day going to die with, and it just stays up here and never gets implemented, that's a form of procrastination. In fact, I know so many people, and you guys would know these people, and maybe you are one, that has a little kind of gentle flex about how many books that they've read, but they're still in the same place. Now, I saw a comment here about reading is my favorite relaxation activity. Yeah, reading fiction for enjoyment is a different thing. Now, this is not something I do because it's not particularly a priority for me. If you're reading books for enjoyment, that's a different thing. But if you're reading books for the purpose of finding things out, but then you're not doing anything about it, something needs to change. This brings me to my two of my favorite sayings. And these are sayings that I have abided by personally since I got my first business coach. Number one, information without action is just noise. Feel free to write that in the comments if you are listening live. When you write things down that you hear and then you write them down, they become embedded. It's actually a form of action. I'm going to say it again. Information without action is just noise. Number two, success likes speed. Success likes speed. Feel free to write these two things in the comments to cement this into your learning. Information without action is just noise. And success likes speed. So let's talk about you. Because I've talked about me, so let's talk about you. Inside Better Body Academy, there is a wealth of information. There is so much information. Inside the guide section, there is an abundance of coaching, which, if applied, will change your life. It will slowly move you towards your goals. However, if studied and not applied immediately, here is what happens. The information, because your brain hasn't got an unlimited capacity, in the same way that a computer can't have an endless amount of information at one time. It has to process it. In the same way, your brain's processor, if you're just taking in information and you're not doing anything with it, all that actually does is just become information or data that creates overload and noise in your brain and transmutes into overwhelm. So a lot of people say, I've listened to 100 podcasts and it just makes me more overwhelmed. That's because you're staying up here. Now, this podcast, ironically, is exactly the same. I try to make these podcasts information rich. Like, obviously that's the goal. But these podcasts are another useless piece of information unless you actually do something with them. They're completely useless unless you do anything with them. Now, take the information from yesterday's podcast that we did on Mother's Day and the giveaway. And preceding actually announcing the winners, I gave 20 minutes of impassioned information to the women and perhaps men that were listening about needing to take action for themselves. So many women feel guilty about prioritizing themselves. And I understand it because our thinking is, well, when we become a mother or a parent, we need to prioritize the kids first. The missing piece in this is by prioritizing yourself a little bit, you become a better parent because you feel better about yourself. So actually, by prioritizing yourself, you end up prioritizing your kids just indirectly. Now, we had a bunch of people listening to that episode, and then a whole bunch of people that will listen after it. I wonder how many women who listen to that episode are going to do something about it today. I wonder how many people that are going to move into action today. Or is it just going to be another thing which we go, oh, that was really good information. That was so good. Like, I love how, passionate JC is. Oh, yes, awesome. I'll do it next Monday. You see, success loves speed. To those that are inside of the Better Body Academy, and I'm staring at you now, brothers and sisters, To those of you that got involved in Saturday mornings for the Aussies workshop called the Engine Upgrade, how many of you have taken that information, or at least one piece of the information, and applied that information immediately? Like, literally let me know. Now, a lot of you, it was a base workshop, a simple workshop, and a lot of you would have already implemented that immediately before. But how many of you listened to that workshop and that was new information to you, but you'd not done anything about it? You are at a point where this is around, 36 hours to 48 hours after that workshop was done. So the question is, that information is about to expire in your mind. It's kind of good information that's come in and gone out. Have you going to do anything about it? I'll give you some examples. Locking your training dates into your diary for this week. Deciding this week, I'm going to get out of the circuit room and I'm going to get into the weights room. Getting yourself a membership. Shout out to Andrew Hutton, one of our male clients, who straight after the workshop said, Jace, I need a gym membership. Can you build me a program right now? And we did it. How many of you picked up Atomic Habits, the book that we recommend, the Bible inside of Better Body Academy, which ironically is completely useless unless you actually apply it? How many of you, most importantly, have created a morning routine or ritual around your training to make you more likely to do it? We've got a lot of podcast subscribers that are not BBA members, and the same thing applies to you. Listening to this podcast without actually taking the step and reaching out will have a net effect of 0. I remember when I first come across my mentor, I come across him through Instagram and then podcasting. I binge listened to 50 of his episodes of his podcast in a week. And then at the end of that week, I took action, I signed up for his program, and my life changed immediately. Immediately. Because success likes speed. And information without action is just noise. Guys, the takeaway is this. Success has very, very, very little to do with good intention and everything to do with taking quick, messy action. I think a lot of us, we stop from taking action. We don't lean into taking action. And the reason is because we feel like we're not perfectly prepared at the moment. Having worked with hundreds of clients, what I can tell you is that the people that are successful are not the people that were most prepared. The people that were successful are the people that got started and took messy action. They took messy action. They signed up for a gym before they were ready. They didn't wait till next week to start the meal plan because that's when they did their shopping. They just did as best as they could with the meal plan. They didn't wait until they were perfect with their MyFitnessPal tracking. They just tried to track a little bit for a few days and knew that that would come with the territory of making mistakes. So many of us wait until we're perfect or think that we're going to be perfect to start something, and that's the trick, that's the loop, that's the procrastination. Most of us hold back because we don't want to fail. But what if we accepted that failure was part of the success and we just do it anyway? Now guys, just to make a point, I am not saying that learning is stupid. In fact, let me underline this podcast by this statement. I believe the secret to personal happiness, certainly in my experience, the secret to happiness is continued personal growth. That's what it feels like for me. I'm happiest when I'm continually growing. And that growth is contingent on continued learning and education. So if you reverse engineer that, if you want to be happy, you need to continue to learn and educate yourself so that you continue to grow. And by continuing to grow, you'll start to realize that happiness comes with growth and feeling like you are moving yourself forward, allowing you to experience more of the world. What I am saying is that all this information is a complete waste of time, space, and noise unless it's actually applied. So I want to finish off this episode with just giving you what my implementation process looks like, okay? So that you've got a practical takeaway here. This is my personal practice. I listen to podcasts mostly now. The main reason is because when I start to read books, I fall asleep. I work on like crazy adrenaline and crazy energy, and the moment that I stop and stay still, I fall asleep. And so I listen to podcasts predominantly while I'm eating breakfast and while I am on a treadmill walking, right? Not while I am doing gym because it distracts me. But when I'm on the treadmill, I want to be distracted so the time passes quicker. So I listen to a podcast, and when I hear something in that podcast that I think I can apply this, what I do is I flick the podcast up on my iPhone, go across to the Gmail app, and I send myself a message, a brief message on what it is that I need, that I caught from that podcast and I need to apply. So it might be a quote, and I'll say, flick to the podcast, I'll say voice note, and then I'll do the voice note, translate it into words, send it to myself. And then when I get back to my computer, one of two things has happened. Number one, I open up my inbox and I immediately implement the thing. And the thing is normally a post or a piece of content that I want to make that's inspired by something that I read or listened to. Success like speed. So I can implement that immediately that day. And that's the inspiration for the majority of the posts that I talk about, the content that I talk about. Now, if it's a project or something that I need to pad out a little bit, here's what I do. It goes straight into on the left-hand side is my personal business. These are my personal tasks. So things like banking, investment, passports, booking a holiday, I put on here. The business tasks go over here, and I scrub them out as I go. Each week, anything that has been done, I go and cross through it, and everything that's not done, I take that across to another page so it appears on the next page, and I carry the task through. So I never forget the important tasks. It's funny because at the end of the month, I look back and think, fuck, I've implemented a bunch of things here that I almost forgot that I put those things in place. This podcast is a great example. I wanted to do a podcast for 3 years, but I didn't have a podcast until I actually took action, contacted someone to produce the podcast, and did podcast number 1. Now, this is episode 109 in the course of 1 year. Guys, I'm going to wrap this episode up. It's been a big episode to try to kick your butt into a Monday morning. And for those of you that are in Better Body Academy, it's the 3rd week of our 6-week sprint. Success like speed. What can you take out of this podcast? Just one thing and implement immediately. And remember, all of this information, if you come off this podcast and go, that was really good, if nothing happens as a result of it, if nothing changes, nothing changes. I'm going to leave you on that note. Guys, this has been the Better Body Academy podcast coming to you on an Australian Monday morning, a Northern Hemisphere in this side of the world, Sunday afternoon. I hope you guys have a beautiful, beautiful start to the week. Thank you so much for coming into the episode. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next episode.